Hey guys, I just want to talk to you guys about the topic that I chose for my disability history paper. Personally, I chose the Willowbrook State School, and not just the state school, but specifically, I wanted to focus on the cruelty that happened to children at the Willowbrook State School. I think when we first started reading it, it was in week 4 when we had the Welcome to Willowsbrook reading and the Willowsbrook World Chapter 6 reading. I couldn't really believe my eyes, what I was seeing, what I was hearing. Specifically, when we watched the video on YouTube and we actually got a visual of what these children were going through and everything that they had to endure, I was kind of like baffled a little bit. And throughout the semester, I think this topic really just stuck in my mind. Overall, just a little brief synopsis of the ward. It opened its doors in 1942, and originally it was a hospital for the World War II soldiers, and eventually they tried to make it into a veterans administration site, but the mental health and hygiene got involved and they knocked out that deal. So it was ultimately turned exactly what it was supposed to be, a hospital for the disabled. And one thing I want to highlight about Willowsbrook is that children of all ages was there. It wasn't specifically from this age to this age. Family was actually convinced to send their children there. And not only did some of these children get sent there, but the institution were reportedly using them as test case studies for hepatitis. Some parents were informed, some parents weren't informed. So, children were given vaccinations, and basically, they were being used as guinea pigs to track the viral infections. The viral infections, children, not just adults. Especially with the lack of care that Willowsbrook kind of took for these children and had for these children. It's something that I really didn't want to believe. Willowsbrook had a 20-to-1 ratio of patients to children. So eventually it was just very crowded and very overbooked. Kristen Rudd mentioned that the employee interaction between Willowsbrook and the children were basically void. It was basically none. Everybody was overwhelmed, and they really couldn't tend to these children. The Senator of New York, John F. Kennedy, he took a visit to Willowsbrook, and at the time he was the Senator of New York. And his thoughts about that was it resembled a snake pit, like a snake pit. Snakes are dangerous and crazy animals, but that's how he compared Willowsbrook to. He compared it to a snake pit, and just imagine children, being described in a place that, resembled something like that. It's not safe, it wasn't sanitary. They weren't really being tended to, and then on top of that, they lacked clean clothes. They lacked having the proper amount of food, basically sometimes any food at all. Diseases could be caught in unsanitary conditions. Children, they were living in their own feces, and that caused health problems. There were sicknesses, like pneumonia that happened from kids living there. And it was just a place that was very horrid. Ivan Harvey goes on to say that showers were few, and sometimes there was no soap or towels available. So these children really lacked the basic resources to stay alive, and just the crowded situation in there just didn't give them the right oomph to even survive in a place like that. And to top it off, sexual assault was common in a place like that. Now, a person may think, these are all children, and, they're, even though it's not that much staff, they're being monitored by adults. So it should be easy for them to, keep a look on things like that. But that's not true. Women and young girls, not women, but specifically young girls, were assaulted and they were raped in Willowsbrook. Even to the point where some young girls got pregnant. And just to imagine young girls being pregnant in a place that don't have proper care, that lack just the basic needs of towels and food. Can you imagine just maternity treatment that they received, or the maternity care that they received? So it really was something that just wasn't a good place for anyone to be in, let alone. And all of this stuff just stuck in my head. And that's why I had to do this topic. And another thing that really jumped in my brain was the fact that staff, they didn't have to really check on the children, as far they didn't have to report to anybody about their sorry, they didn't have to report to anybody. That was like my 5-minute timer. They didn't have to report, but I'm going to keep going. They didn't have to report to anyone when the kids were harmed or if they had bruises. They just had to like write it down in this book. And I didn't really think that that was fair. You know, they can just kind of brush the kids off. So that's what happened at Willowbrook. It was just a bunch of brushing off, and no one really cared or took the time to really care for these children. And even if they did, you know, it wasn't to the best of their ability because this place lacked resources. Geraldo Rivera, specifically, he was the one who came in there with his camera crew, like kicking down the doors, and he the one that exposed Willowbrook, and that's how it went viral, and the government got involved, and everything was crazy. But even he said, like, the children, you know, you have no idea what these children could do because they basically sanctioned to this one place, and it's just them, and it's not fair to them. So that's why I chose this topic, and, you know, it makes me really want to fight and think about all the children now and, you know, actually help and actually stick out or just see what you can do to be a part of something like this, because this is unacceptable. And lucky thing it got closed down, because children should never be abused or mistreated, tortured or abandoned. You know, some children were beaten with belts, and it was just crazy at Willowbrook. You know, so I really just reported in my paper on the cruelty that these children endured. So, you know, hopefully you check it out and you read it. But, you know, let's continue to keep these children safe. Yeah, let's keep children safe.